Hey everybody, it's the Doll Boy, and today I've got a really fun video for you. A little over 4 years ago, I collaborated with Rescued Plastics for my Monster High customization of Gamora from Guardians of the Galaxy. Since then, I've learned a lot more about doll hair, and I've really wanted to put that knowledge into practice. So when Rainbow High announced their Neon Shadow dolls included a green-skinned girl, I started planning this new custom doll right away. I got Harley Limestone as soon as I could, as the first Shadow High band member I got. Personally, I'm not a really big fan of the Shadow High dolls with fantasy colored skin tones, so I'm also not planning to get a lot of the other dolls in this set, even though I do really love their fashion. But for Harley, she was just too perfect to turn into a second version of Gamora, since she does have that green skin already, and that eye makeup really reminds me of Gamora's face paint. On my Monster High version, I used saran hair in black and red, using short black hair on the part line and hairline, and long red hair in the middle. And for this one, I wanted to use some actual ombre dyed hair, but more on that later. Now let's just go ahead and take a look at the actual base doll. Harley comes in this really nice white box that is pretty similar to the other boxes we know from the musical dolls from Rainbow High, with the musical instrument on one side, doll in the middle, and second outfit on the other side. Then on one side of the box, it tells you that Harley is a music focus. And on the back, it gives you a full artwork for the Neon Shadow band. And it also mentions that they're a part of... And it reads out, the world famous Rainbow Vision music competition is heating up, and the rocking girls of Neon Shadow have their eyes on the prize. The other side is just that glitching effect that we know from the Shadow High dolls already. On the front window, it does have this studded print around the doll, as well as some musical notes. And it says Shadow High and Rainbow Vision on the front too. But interestingly enough, there is no mention about YouTube, where you can watch the full Rainbow Vision storyline. Now I just open up the box by cutting open the sides, top and bottom, which allows me to open the back of the box to the top, to reveal the separate boxes. With the instruments on one box, second outfit and shoes in the next, and then finally the doll itself. As you can see, my doll did come with a chip on her lip, but the other one that I found had a really messy hairline, so I felt this would be the easiest fix. Out of the box, one thing that was the most important to me was the face, since that is basically the only thing you will see once this custom is done. She did have some glue stains on the face, but those came right off. And other than that, she's got these black eyebrows, graphic liner in green and white, and green to black ombre lips, with that one small chip. But I think that should be a pretty easy fix with some dark green paint. As you can see, she does also have one blue eye and one more purple eye, so I'm planning to swap out both eyes for brown ones. Her earrings are these safety pins, which I think is a really fun detail. The current hair has a lot of hair gel in it, which unfortunately makes it really stiff. The hair color is very cool, since it has some lighter green highlights, as well as that black underlayer, and black braids that seem to be made out of rope material. As an accessory, she's wearing these silver cat ears that are in a headband style, and looks like they're made out of barbed wire. Then to show off the rest of the outfit, I wanted to get all of the hair out of the way for now, since there's a lot of green and black going on, and I do want to make sure everything shows up well. For the sweater, she's got these green sleeves with silver studs on both sides, and she's got these strings crisscrossed, of which I really love the vibe, but I think it is such a shame that it covers up the really cute cat artwork that's on the sweater in black, green, white, and a metallic silver. The sweater also has that same hoodie that we know that velcros open in the back. I was actually quite scared about the hoodie staining the doll's body, but for mine, there was only a bit of black fluff and no actual stains. I am going to go right ahead and put her in our second green sequin top to avoid YouTube getting mad for doll nudity. This top is a pretty interesting piece since the sequins aren't really sparkly and the straps on the top have some black and golden details. The biker shorts she was originally wearing with her sweater are such a cool piece. They're a bright green with grey on the sides and have some metallic silver signs as well, and I think they'll look really cool with my other green dolls like Karma and Jade. For shoes, she's wearing these black knee-high Converse boots with some white ties that wrap around the top of the boot. They do have a slit in the back to make them easier to take off. As you can see, underneath those boots, her feet are still pointed for high heels. And she's also wearing these really high white socks with green stripes to make the look a bit more sporty. Then for the second outfit, to match the top, Harley comes with these grey jeans that say SH and have more of that cat art on them, that match the cat on the hoodie. So that would also be a really fun outfit. There's also this white fur jacket with a lot of black and green writing on it, like Sparkle, Eclipse, and Shadow. Before washing the hair, I did want to try taking out the braids, which was much harder than I thought, since there is some glue on the root as well to keep that black thread in place. I tried to carefully cut that out, but that didn't really work for me. That's why I washed the roots with soap and warm water, which also didn't make a big difference. As you can see, I'm pulling on that black thread really hard. So I tried to cut that black thread out again, and finally I was able to break that thread in half and pull it out. On another strand though, it was much easier after just rinsing it with soap and water. And as you can see, for this one, I was able to just unbraid the strands and slide the black out right away. After doing some fun styles on the original hair, I simply chopped it all off as short as I could, so I could start the customization process. To start that off, I'm filling up my bowl with boiling water. I dip in the doll's head straight away to soften up the plastic of the doll's head, which makes the head very nice and squishy, and allows me to take it off the body. Then I take my forceps pliers that I'm keeping closed, and I start scraping the inside of the head to pull all of the short green hair that is left on the inside of the head. This gives the outside of the head a really clean look, but you can see all of that junk is still inside of the head now. That's why I'm now taking my forceps pliers once again, this time opening them up before I go into the head. Then inside the head, I move the pliers around and close them to grab onto the hair and pull that out. I keep repeating this step until I've taken all of that leftover hair out of the head. Once the head is completely cleaned out, I redip the head in hot water to soften it up again, so I can swap her eyes. I start off by taking out the original eyes. I already had these brown eyes laying around, but I noticed that Harley's eyes have 3 bags on the back, and inside the eye you can see 3 little holes for these bags to click into. The new eyes I have for her have 4 bags in different spots than those holes, so I was very worried that they might not line up and not fit in the eye sockets. Honestly, doing eye swaps in general makes me so nervous, and I feel like it just takes so much effort. I'm also not the best at explaining how to do it, since for me it still really is a lot of trial, error, and a little cursing. I did actually manage to get both eyes in though, and I was really excited about how different that made her look already. Now for the scalp, I'm gonna paint that dark using black acrylic paint mixed in with some dark brown, and I'm adding in some Mod Podge as well to keep the paint flexible during the process. Then I just paint the scalp in a few layers to get the coverage I want. Then for the hair I'm gonna be using, I sent over 2 packs of the cherry red DGHQ nylon hair from the Doll Planet to Darling's Dollhouse, who often dyes their own doll hair, and I asked them to dye these hair hangs in an ombre effect. And who better to explain how that's done than Darling's Dollhouse themselves.
First things first, we bring our dye to a boil. We will be using Rit all-purpose dark brown. Alright, next up, we're going to wet our hair in order to make sure that it sinks down in the dye more easily. I've got it tied off at where they said it wanted. One was 1/4 of the length, one was about 1/3 of the length. So because it's loose hair, we have to keep it tied together to keep it from like being crazy. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that the dye penetrates all of the hair. Let's get ready to dip it. Just gonna go for it, get it down in there. And one of the things that we're going to do is to make sure that we don't dye straight across. We're going to swirl it around a lot, and we're also going to kind of tip it up and down and let the dye drain down the hair, because you want it to be a nice gradient and not like this very blunt looking. But you also don't want to get your tie in the dye, so that's another thing you gotta watch out for. Alright, so now that I've got some dye in it, I'm gonna do a cold rinse and see where we're at. Okay, when rinsing it in the cold water, you want to kind of pull it apart, because you want to make sure that that hair on the underneath side gets dyed as well. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing again, and we're just going to dip it in the dye. Alright, so sometimes you do have to go over it 3, maybe even 4 times, especially when you're doing these darker colors. And again, when you're rinsing, you want to hold the hair straight down so that the dye kind of runs down it just a little bit, because like you want that nice gradient. You don't want like a straight across looking dye job. So got it tied back up now, got it all rinsed, and we're gonna go brush it out, lay it out, and let it dry. Okay, so once I'm sure that the dye has saturated everywhere that I need it to, I go ahead and re-tie the middle and I brush it out really nicely. And you can blow dry it or just wait for it to dry, and it is fine either way. I just have an old brush that I use specifically for hair dyed hair and dolls hair and wigs and that kind of thing. And yeah, that's all there is to it.
Then I've also got some flame red hair, as well as Bordeaux from the Doll Planet hair, and that ombre hair, with one very high effect and one slightly lower. To prepare myself for the reroot, I sectioned off a bunch of small strands on my table, and now I'm taking my bowl of water again to soften up the head so I can actually get the needle into the head. Once the head is nice and flexible, I take one of the strands, wrap it around my finger 2 times, and then I take my Reroot tool. I pick up the strand with the tool, and then I carefully pull on the ends of that strand to get that loop very tight around my tool, and I push the needle in one of the holes from the hairline. I then continue to complete the hairline in the ombre hair, using most of the lower dyed ombre strands and some of the high ombre ones as a bit of a highlight effect. This gives the entire color transition from dark to red even more of that gradient effect. After I rerooted the entire hairline, I decide where I want the part line to go. And for Gamora, I went for a slight off-center part line, similar to what she's got in the movie. The doll originally has a middle part, so to help me create new holes for the part line, I flipped over the needle in my Reroot tool to just have the pointy end sticking out. And now I'm simply poking holes in the head in a straight line where I want the part to go. This way it's gonna be much easier to add in the hair later, because you already have that guide on where you're going, and the plastic already has that hole in it. Then I flip the needle in my Reroot tool back again, warm up the head once more, and simply start filling the newly made holes with thicker strands than I normally use. For the part line, I'm still exclusively using the ombre hair strands because I want all of the visible roots to be dark. I then split that one row into 2 to reveal the part line, which I actually forgot to film, but this is how it looked afterwards. Then I also was really hesitating to add darker lowlights or keep it all very red, so I asked you guys on Instagram which option you'd prefer, and most of you actually voted for the lowlights. So I went ahead and mixed up a lowlight blend made of black, brown and dark red hair to make sure it's a very nice match to the root color. Now to place these lowlights, I'm going to be very strategic because I want the second row around the hairline and part line to still be that ombre color as well, so I'm adding the lowlights in the second row behind the perimeter to make sure they're gonna be very blended and quite subtle. Honestly, I was pretty nervous for this step, since the dark color can be very overpowering, and originally Gamora does not have any black lowlights in these movies. It did end up looking very pretty though, and in the end, I achieved this lovely color transition, as it is a mix of the higher and lower ombre colors, that darker color blend, as well as that Bordeaux highlight. Now I twisted all of the hair out of the way to make sure I don't get any glue in the hair. And I'm taking my Fabri-Tac glue and adding that to the inside of the head. I swirl around the head while doing this to get the glue all the way around the head. While pulling out the glue bottle, you want to avoid pulling it to the back because that seriously risks getting glue in the hair, which unfortunately has happened to me before. To then ensure an even coverage of the glue, I also go in with a Q-tip and move that around in the head. Then, after letting that dry overnight, I'm taking the body that I already dressed for this Gamora look, and I can finally put the head back on that body. Then I brush out the hair and simply cut those stray ends. And no worries, because I did perfect the cut and gave her some soft layers off camera. I also went in with some perm rollers to give her some temporary waves, and then I took her to Marvel Avengers Campus in Disneyland Paris for the full reveal. I really hope you like this video and love my new Gamora doll as much as I do. If you did, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more doll makeovers. Also let me know in the comments what other types of videos you'd like to see from me. Then to see more of my custom and my other dolls, follow me on Instagram too, @thedollboy. See you next time!